Good morning, Southeast Missouri, and wherever you may be listening, this is the Retirement Playbook, brought to you by Alspaugh Wealth Management. We are the retirement people, and we're here with you every Saturday morning. And we're also available on all of the podcast arenas like Spotify and wherever you may get your podcast. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Tony Shore. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Brock Alspaugh. Great to be here with you. I'm excited about the show today. I've had a great week. I really have.
Okay, why have you had a great week?
Well, I've had a great week because I got to spend some time with my family, which is always good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Love that.
And just enjoying work. I've got a new studio I'm in here. As you can see, it's great. I'm loving it. And just looking forward to this recording. It's the highlight of my week, seeing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So someone's looking to get a raise, it sounds like to me.
Somebody's bucking for a promotion. Is what's happening. Somebody's bucking for a promotion. Probably
Listen,
that co-host Shore.
Yeah. Listen, Tony, I mentioned this last week, but it's a little bit of this is a new day. This is this is exciting, but yet I'm still a little just kind of sad a little bit because this is our last broadcast on KCI MKSIM here for at least the time being. It's been a good run, Tony. It's been
Right.
I really have enjoyed.
The show's not stopping.
No.
We're
The
going to do new shows
going.
every week.
Yep.
We're just not going to be on the radio.
If you're listening on the radio, local radio, you're going to have to go to Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And then also, we're going to be on YouTube. We have been on YouTube for the last couple months. So that's the easiest thing to do. If you could just go to youtube.com and search Alspaugh Wealth Management, you'll see our page and you'll see the radio show there with me and Tony and our picture and videos, past videos. Just subscribe, right? And then it will send you alert when the new show gets posted. And so anyway, but I do want to say, I appreciate everyone at KCI MKSIM and including Fawn Riggin. She's been great to work with.
Oh, great people at the station.
Great people at the station.
We love them.
Yep. Sure do. And so anyway, but all good things must come to an end, but it's not really ending like you said. So again, please go to YouTube, check us out, subscribe to our channel, and we'll be connected with you forever.
Yeah. And if you're into the podcast thing, you can subscribe to the show's podcast on all the major podcasting sites, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or go to YouTube and you can actually watch the show each week. And we've got brand new shows each and every week. The Retirement Playbook is the name of the show. And you can type in Alspaugh and Retirement Playbook, and it'll come up on any of the podcasting sites.
Got it.
And on YouTube as well.
I didn't know if you had to specifically put in just Alspaugh Wealth Management or the Retirement Playbook, so that's good to know, Tony, that you can
I think if you type in Alspaugh and Retirement, it'll come up.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Just those two words. Well, I'm excited. It's going to be, a move. I know we've been getting the video show rolling. The video of our show each week. And so now that's where our efforts are going to be. I think you'll still hear about Brock on the radio, and I know you'll be doing ads on radio stations in the area to promote the show. But the show will no longer be aired on the air, so you'll have to go online and listen or subscribe.
I'm going to quote Wolf of Wall Street. Okay. Not a real classy movie by any means, and it paints a really bad picture on the financial advice world, but he does have a quote in there. The show goes on.
And the show goes on.
The show goes on.
I like it. I like it. Well, Brock, speaking of the show going on, what are we talking about on the show today?
We're going to talk about a lot of different stuff. This week with inflation, the Jerome Powell testimony in front of Congress, talking about inflation, talking about GDP, talking about interest rates, and how this whole thing comes together. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about how to save for a rainy day. We're going to talk about the importance of making sure that you have a rainy day fund and an emergency fund and some of the ways that the things that you can do to get there to where you need to be. But before we get into all that, Tony, I want people to go to this website. It's Alspaugh, Alspaugh, Wealth Management, That's our website. You can go in there. You can check out past shows. That's another way that people can get to our shows here as well, is go to our website. And then there's also things like you can order my book. It's called The Last Paycheck, How to Build Sustainable Retirement Income and Keep Those Paychecks Coming In. That's the goal. That's what everybody wants to do. That's a great way to get started. Yeah. But if you're saying, hey, I'm ready to get started, Brock, I need a customized plan. I want to make sure that not only myself, my wife, or my husband, and my kids are taken care of, you need to just call our office or click on our website and say, please schedule a complimentary consultation. So there's a couple ways you can do that. Phone number's on the screen, 573-332-7855. Or again, that web address is alspaughwealthmanagement.com. All right, Tony, you ready to get started?
Yes, I am so ready. I can't wait for the show. Now, you said, what did the Fed chair say?
Yeah,
Holy cow, what did our Fed chair say?
So we're still hearing some of that. We don't know exactly as of the time of recording this show, but inflation is, mid threes, right? 3.2, 3.4. It's within reason, and I know it's not their target of 2.5. Right. So they're not willing at this point, Tony, to reduce interest rates. That was the big talk at the end of the last year. And that's quite frankly what drove the market to go up. Oh, everybody's excited. Oh, they're going to reduce rates at the end of the year. And there's going to be 3 rate cuts by the end of the year. And that's just simply probably not going to happen now.
Yeah.
It's definitely not happening right now as far as reducing any rates right now at this meeting this week. But Tony, the numbers are pretty good. You talk about GDP, you talk about interest rates, you talk about where inflation is. The economy is pretty healthy. Now you're hearing about some of the tech sector layoffs that happened last year quite a bit, and it's continuing to happen this year. But folks, that is just a reflection of the overhiring they did during COVID, right?
Yeah,
so they're getting back to just a normal levelized employment level. So yes, there are some people losing jobs at different companies, but the job market's still pretty strong. So those people are going to be able to land somewhere, I'm sure. But don't let that be noise as to what you're going to do inside of any decision that you would make with your portfolio.
Yeah.
People are saying, oh, this recession is going to come. We've been saying that for 2 years now. Has it come? No. Do we have signs that it could happen? Anything could happen, Tony. But realistically, our economy is on pretty good foot right now.
Yeah, it really is.
There's some scary things. Credit card utilizations rates are really high right now. We've still got the war going on in Ukraine. There's other factors that would cause the market to go down. No question. There's some things that could, pop up and, blow up in our face. But overall, fundamentally, we're in pretty good shape. And the people that I talk to, some of the portfolio managers that you and I both know, Tony, are pretty still bullish on the market, and
they are.
And they think that it's going to continue to kind of tick up. We're not going to see 2023 again, I don't think, this year in 2024 as far as the performance of the stock market. But, they're optimistic that you're going to be in that 10 to 15% range positive returns on the stock market this year. Who knows? I do know that we were up pretty good so far, right? It's almost the end of the first quarter, Tony, and we've had some really pretty nice gains in this first quarter. So we'll see what happens. For sure. But, rates coming down, probably not going to happen, Tony, this year.
We'll see what the Fed, as of this recording, the Fed later today is going to meet and make some announcements. So we'll see what the Fed chair. I want shirts made up that say "Fed chair says what?" Question mark.
I want a shirt that says Tony Shore for Fed Prez.
I don't think you want me as I don't want that job. I'll tell you that right now.
I tell you what, Tony, people have mentioned to me, like, hey, you might want to run for city council or school board or whatever, so on and so on. I'm like, there is no way. And it makes me appreciate the people that do run and the people that do get elected.
Politics is tough.
Are you kidding
I don't know why anyone would want that job. I think that's why we have the candidates we do for president. Nobody. You'd think we could get 2 people that were maybe healthier, younger, and maybe a little brighter or well-spoken, but nope, nobody wants to be president, right?
You know what's so crazy, Tony? It's funny you bring this up because I don't know one person that I've talked to that goes, yeah, no, I'm super happy with the candidates that we have.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's because it's just a repeat of 2020. We need some fresh blood in there.
Man,
and
no kidding.
wow, just
Speaking
wow.
Speaking of fresh blood, Tony, I'm gonna get to the rainy day here in a second.
Sure.
Speaking of fresh blood, I've been invited the last few years and it just didn't work out, but this year I accepted. I have been invited to participate in the Lemon Drop Long Drive Contest on April 13th. And so I've got to go hit a golf ball as far as I can hit it here in a few weeks. And so I'm going to start doing the rotational exercises. I told my trainer, I said, hey, I need to start, doing some stuff so I can really hit that ball as far as I can hit it. But we're also raising money, and the money that goes for the charitable cause, Walks with Nate, it helps with cancer stuff, researching patients locally. So, it's going to be real exciting. I'm going to actually have some information about how you can donate if you'd like to do that as well.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up because obviously helping local cancer victims,
right,
and help funding cancer research as well and local facilities in our area. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, so now we're going to hit some rainy days in retirement financially, and we just need to be prepared for them, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we all know, Tony, the good old expression, save for a rainy day.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard it. It simply means this: that having access to enough money to see you through in an event that could prevent you from obtaining other financial goals. In other words, we want enough money to set aside for emergencies. So if something happens, we don't have to use a credit card. We don't have to borrow from our 401k. We don't have to take out and pay penalties on an IRA distribution. And we don't want to touch our Roths, right? So if you don't want to do that stuff, that's all a negative for your long-term picture, then you have to make sure that you have this emergency fund and what we call a rainy day fund. It's very, very important, okay? It's what I call rainy day protection. Preparing for rainy days is particularly important as you age and when you get closer to times where medical expenses, Tony, could become a large expense. And this is why when we talk about medical expenses, especially in retirement, when you're talking about Medicare, getting a Medicare supplement, that protects your rainy day, right? Because if you don't have a supplement, for example, in retirement and you just have Medicare, and let's say something happens, big expense, and it doesn't take much to get a big expense medically nowadays. But let's say you're going to be responsible for 20%, because remember, Medicare is only covering 80%. Now, you got a $100,000 bill, you got to come up with $20,000. That's a lot of money, Tony. So that's rainy day protection. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that we, A, have a rainy day fund, emergency fund, and B, have things in place to protect that. Okay. Your deductibles that you have to pay for, you got to have an emergency, or you got to have extra money in case something happens. And even if you've got that protection, you've got Medicare, and you've got a supplement, you're still going to have potentially some deductibles and some other expenses.
Sure.
Maybe for prescriptions, whatever.
Yeah. People don't realize that Medicare doesn't cover everything. And we've talked about this. You've said this on previous shows, Brock, but it's worth mentioning again that Medicare doesn't cover everything, and you still have premiums, you still have deductibles.
That's right.
You still have copays, and you still need some type of Medicare Advantage or supplemental insurance because vision, dental, hearing isn't covered by standard, and you still have prescription copays typically, even with Medicare. So you have all these things, and you're going to need more and more medications and expensive medications. So you need to have a plan in place to deal with those. And
100%.
That's the kind of rainy day. Healthcare is a big one, not even to mention long-term care.
Yeah, that's actually my next topic. But when it comes to the importance of having the right plan, whether it's, obviously Medicare A and B, right? That's just what it is what it is. But when you have a supplement, there's different types of plans. You need to make sure, based on your kind of health status, that you have the right plan. You need to make sure that you have the right prescription plan to make sure that the drugs that you take, the prescriptions that you take, are in the formularies of your drug plan, right? So if you take maybe a specialized drug that's a tier 2, tier 3, or what have you, okay, you need to make sure you have the right prescription plan to prevent the least amount of money coming out of your pocket. That's what it comes down to. And that is a direct, or has a direct impact on your rainy day fund, Tony.
Yeah.
Because then you don't, if you have the right plan, you don't have to come out as much as pocket, and therefore you have your standard, what you should have in an emergency / rainy day fund.
Yeah. But speaking of rainy days, Brock, you said your next topic is long-term care, and that's not a rainy day. That's a thunderstorm. That's a flood. Because when we're talking about high costs, it's outrageous. So how can we possibly prepare for that?
So I'm going to give you a little sample story here that I've had people come and talk to me in the last couple of weeks, Tony. And that is that their long-term care insurance policy that they took out, okay, over the last few years has gotten pretty darn expensive. And we all know why. Well, there's a couple different reasons why traditional long-term care insurance has gotten so expensive. Number one is the baby boomer generation. Hello. We have 10,000 people turning 65 every single day, okay, in this country. That's going to be expensive for these insurance carriers to cover these expenses. And we know through statistics that 70% of people over the age of 65 are going to need some kind of long-term care during their lifetime.
Right.
Let me repeat that.
Yep.
70% of people over 65 are going to need some kind of long-term care. Okay. We don't want to plan on being a 30% number, right? I mean, it's too much of a gamble. So what have people done? They go out and buy traditional long-term care insurance. Now, the good thing about that is that when they increase your premium charges, they have to do it for an entire class of people. Well, they've had to do that a lot lately in the last few years. Last 10 years, I have a client that had a traditional long-term care insurance policy, Tony, and her premiums have doubled in the last 10 years. Okay. Probably not a surprise to you, but when you're talking about doubling, Tony, that's a big, big deal. And it starts to get kind of expensive. Not kind of, it's very expensive. In this particular case, I'll just say what the number was. It was $7,500 for a husband and wife for their long-term care. Yeah. And then
a month.
No, a year. A year.
That
was their annual premiums.
for their insurance.
Yeah, for the insurance
that's a
policy.
lot.
Yep. So, and then you throw in the fact that so many, I told you there was two main reasons why long-term care insurance policies have gotten so expensive. Number one is the baby boomer generation. Number two is that there's just not that many players in the game anymore, Tony.
No.
So many of these insurance companies realize, oh, wow, we got a major problem coming in the next few, 10 to 20 years.
Plus, the costs of long-term care per month are between $6,000 and $12,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
a month.
Right. And so, knowing that there's only a few players in the game, look, competition is good, right? Because competition drives down prices. Well, when there's not that much competition, that doesn't work.
Right.
Okay. And so, that's another reason why long-term care insurance has got so expensive. The other part of it is people are realizing there's other and better alternatives. What I mean by that is, if you have traditional long-term care insurance, it's a great deal, right? I mean, look, even in that particular example I was telling you, $7,500 a year, that's going to be taken care of through the benefit that they have in basically 1 month, maybe 2 months. Okay. So it's still, the trade-off is there. The problem that people have with traditional long-term care insurance, though, is that if you don't use it, you basically have paid all of these premiums for 20 years at $7,500. Well, do the math. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And you lose it.
And you lose it unless you have some kind of return of premium rider, which even makes it that much more expensive.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people have done in the last few years, and we've talked about it here and implemented it with a lot of our clients, is more of an asset-based long-term care where you're taking money from your left pocket, moving it over to your right pocket, and you still have it there as an investment or whatever it may be, okay, and you leverage those dollars if you need it for long-term care. So, for example, you might have a product out there that you deposit a lump sum in, okay, and this usually only works for non-qualified money. So you can't typically use IRAs money for this, Tony, or retirement dollars for this. But if you put in, say, $100,000 into this policy, your money could grow if particular things happen, or you can put it in a fixed bucket earning a specific rate of return. So it's still there for you. If you need it for long-term care, there's 3 different levels: 140%, 200%, and 300%. So basically, if you need long-term care and you get the best rate, you have $300,000 sitting aside for you if you need it for long-term care. But if you don't need it for long-term care, you have an asset that's growing, okay? Or if you pass, that money, the asset that's growing, that money then gets passed on to your beneficiaries. So you will use it, or your beneficiaries will use it, or you'll use it for long-term care. And what's great is, let's say in that example, Tony, the $100,000 turns into $300,000 for long-term care. It's paid out over a 5-year period, so a total of $300,000. You can do the math on what it would be monthly benefit-wise, and it's tax-free. That's right, folks, tax-free. So you turn $100,000 into $300,000 if you use it all for long-term care, and it's tax-free. What a deal, okay? And that's why these traditional policies are going away, and people are just not doing them, because these other alternatives are just so much more attractive, Tony.
Yeah, you do cash value life insurance policy where you can it'll put out payments. You can take payments out for long-term care, or I know even if you have certain types of annuities, you can take money out. It will increase your payments for long-term care should you need it.
Yes, there's lots of different. You're exactly right. There's so many different ways to do this, and that they're just more attractive. Now, the downside is what? You got to have money to do it, right? You got to,
you have to have money to put into it.
Yeah, you got to have money to put into it, but you have to have money to pay your premiums for long-term care insurance anyway, right? So that's why, again, if you're comparing the two, the second option, the asset-based care, or products are typically, a little bit more attractive for people. Not always, but typically.
Yeah.
And so, you did bring up a good point too, by the way. You can use cash value life insurance, which allows you to have an accelerated death benefit rider. So it's exactly that, Tony. You accelerate the death benefit to help pay for your long-term care. So while you're living. Now that reduces the amount of the death benefit. So you got to be careful. If you're using this and saying, hey, I need death benefit, oh, that's nice to have. Just know that, man, if you use it for long-term care, there's not going to be any death benefit left over potentially for your beneficiaries. So you got to just make sure you get the right product. But there's all different variations of asset-based long-term care. And again, according to my experience, most people prefer that versus the traditional.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're not just throwing their money away.
Well, that's one way to put it, Tony Shore.
Right. I mean, you don't want to, there's, if you have the money, it's great to be able to do that. Because like you say, long-term care insurance, you need insurance of some type to cover these events, but you'd like to be able to have access to it if you don't use it.
That's exactly
or your heirs to have access to it if you don't use it. And that's what I meant by that.
Yeah. But what are we ultimately talking about? Again, we started the show talking about, or started this topic talking about what? Rainy day fund. What are some things you could do to protect your rainy day fund? That's exactly what we're talking about. You don't have to use your own money to pay for long-term care. Now, you still may have some deductible periods in there, typically 90 days. But the point is that if we can do things out there to help protect our rainy day fund, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, exactly. And build up that emergency fund.
3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months, Tony. They got to have 3 to 6 months. I prefer to lean towards the 6 months of your monthly expenses. So if your monthly expenses are $5,000, you should probably have somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 as an emergency fund. There you go. Sorry.
There you go. So have the emergency fund built up, have the proper insurance in place to cover healthcare costs and things like that. This has been a great show. And Brock, great topic today. We're out of time. It flew by.
It did.
Give that phone number and web address one more time.
Yeah, just check us out on the web, folks. It's Alspaugh, Alspaugh, wealthmanagement.com, alspaugh.wealthmanagement.com. You can click on there to request a consultation with me if you want, or you could just call our office at 573-332-7855. And again, all my radio listeners, thank you very much for all of your loyalty over the years. Go check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you next week. All right. Talk to you then, Brock. That does it for today's episode of the Retirement Playbook with our host, Brock Alspaugh.